هم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون وإلهكم إله واحد لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أقدم إليك بين يدي كل نفس ولمحة ولحظة وخطرة وطرفة يطرف بها أهل السماوات والأرض وكل شيء هو في علمك كائن أو قد كان أقدم إليك بين يدي ذلك كله الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين آمين شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولي العلم قائما بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم وأنا أشهد بما شهد الله به وأشهد الله على ذلك وأستودع الله هذه الشهادة وهي لي عند الله وديعة أسأله حفظها حتى يتوفاني عليها إن الدين عند الله الإسلام قل اللهم مالك الملك اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب رحمن الدنيا والآخرة ورحيمهما تعطي من تشاء منهما وتمنع من تشاء أنت ترحمنا فارحمنا رحمة تغنينا بها عن رحمة من سواك اللهم اقضي عنا الدين واغننا من الفقر وتوفنا على بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم يا عظيم السلطان يا قديم الإحسان يا دائم النعم يا كثير الجود يا واسع العطاء يا خفي اللطف يا جميل الصنع يا حليما لا يعجل صل يا ربي على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم وارض عن الصحابة أجمعين. اللهم لك الحمد شكرا ولك المن فضلا وأنت ربنا حقا وأنت لم تزل لذلك أهلا. يا ميسر كل عسير ويا جابر كل كسير ويا صاحب كل فريد ويا مغني كل فقير ويا مقوي كل ضعيف ويا مأمن كل مخيف يسر علينا كل عسير فتيسير العسير عليك يسير. اللهم يا من لا يحتاج إلى البيان والتفسير حاجاتنا كثير وأنت عالم بها وخبير. اللهم إني أخاف منك وأخاف ممن يخاف منك وأخاف ممن لا يخاف منك. اللهم بحق من يخاف منك نجنا ممن لا يخاف منك. اللهم بحق سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم احرسنا بعينك التي لا تنام واكنفنا بكنفك الذي لا يرام وارحمنا بقدرتك علينا فلا نهلك وأنت ثقتنا ورجاؤنا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. اللهم إنا نسألك زيادة في الدين وبركة في العمر وصحة في الجسد وسعة في الرزق وتوبة قبل الموت وشهادة عند الموت ومغفرة بعد الموت وعفوا عند الحساب وأمانا من العذاب ونصيبا من الجنة. وارزقنا النظر إلى وجهك الكريم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته.
وإلى حضرة النبي
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى وصحبه. الفاتحة.
بسم الله الرحمن
الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق، ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب، ومن شر النفاثات في العقد، ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدعو مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. والله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. سلام على نوح في العالمين إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين. بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. مزيدا. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام
دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. 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 اللهم إني أسألك من فجاءة الخير وأعوذ بك من فجاءة الشر. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش العظيم. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر كل دابة أنت آخذ بناصيتها إن ربي على صراط مستقيم. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث ومن عذابك أستجير. أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي ولا إلى أحد من خلقي طرفة عين. إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم إني أسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في ديني ودنياي وأهلي ومالي. اللهم استر عوراتي وآمن روعاتي. اللهم احفظني من بين يدي ومن خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي وأعوذ بعظمتك أن أغتال من تحتي. اللهم أنت خلقتني وأنت تهديني وأنت تطعمني وأنت تسقيني وأنت تميتني وأنت تحييني وأنت على كل شيء قدير. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وعليك نتوكل وإليك النشور. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم، فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركته وهداه. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما فيه وخير ما قبله وخير ما بعده، وأعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما فيه وشر ما قبله وشر ما بعده. اللهم ما أصبح بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر على ذلك. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في السماء، عدد ما خلق في الأرض. سبحان الله عدد ما بين ذلك. سبحان الله عدد ما هو خالق. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في السماء. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الحمد لله عدد ما بين ذلك. الحمد لله عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما بين ذلك. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما هو خالق. الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في السماء. الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الله أكبر عدد ما بين ذلك. الله أكبر عدد ما هو خالق. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما بين ذلك. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله، صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله، وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله، صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله، وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله، صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله، وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته.
ولا حضرة النبي.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه. الفاتحة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه يوم الدين. We begin by praising Allah Ta'ala and beginning in His name. We ask for His praise and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and for his family and his companions, his brethren in prophecy, his forefathers in prophecy, and everyone who follows in his footsteps until the day of judgment. May Allah Ta'ala make us amongst them. Ameen. Allah Ta'ala, when He created humanity, He created for them a tangible body that we all are familiar with, our arms, our limbs, our heads, our abdomens, our torsos, and everything. And He created for us as well an intangible, He created for us an intangible piece as well. Our hearts, not our physical heart that pumps blood throughout our body, but our intangible heart. Our heart, our soul, our nafs, our ego, our lower passions, all these things are parts of the body, parts of humanity that, just as how we are concerned with the health of our physical form, we must also be concerned with the health of our form that is not physical, or that is concerned, that is related to our spiritual selves. Allah Ta'ala says in hadith, and He says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. He says the one who purifies it is felicitous, will be in a state of eternal felicity. The it he's talking about is the lower self, or which is contained in the heart. He says whoever purifies that will have falah. Falah is a word that, as one of the scholars, one of the great linguists of our time, of our ummah, he was Yemeni, Az-Zabidi. He wrote in his dictionary, Taj al-Arus, he said, falah is a word that encompasses every possible good thing. So we're talking about felicity not just in this life, but eternal felicity that never ends. So the person who rectifies their heart, rectifies their lower self, they achieve this falah. They achieve this falah. And the one who doesn't, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The one who doesn't, they're in a state where they don't achieve this felicity, and eventually a day will come where they'll be losers. They'll be losers. There'll be a day when the people get resurrected and be held before Allah Ta'ala, and the people who purified their hearts, they'll be led to paradise. The ones who didn't will look at everyone going into paradise, and they'll be going somewhere else. And the Prophet says in a hadith, he says, إِنَّ فِي جَسَدٍ مُضْغَةٍ إِذَا صَلُحَتْ صَلُحَتْ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. He says, verily in the body there is a piece. If it is sound, the whole body is sound. And if it is corrupt, the whole body is corrupt. Verily, it is the heart. Now, he doesn't mean the physical heart. Although there is some truth to it medically, right? If your physical heart is sound, you have good health. He's talking about the spiritual heart. The same heart that Allah Ta'ala was speaking about in the previous verses. The person who rectifies their heart, the person whose heart is sound, their whole body is sound. The person whose heart is not sound, the whole body is corrupted, is in danger. How is that so? So our hearts, as you know, this spiritual heart that we have that contains our soul, a soul or our nafs, this heart, everything we do starts off in the heart, does it not? Every action we perform, everything we do throughout our day, it starts off as something in the heart, an idea, an inclination. It starts off in the heart. And so the one whose heart is purified, the one whose heart is rectified, their body is rectified and sound in the sense that everything the heart produces is something in line with what Allah Ta'ala is pleased with. And so their body is sound, meaning, khalas, there are no more sin. There's no more sin. And the one whose heart is otherwise, their heart is, for example, not rectified, it's not sound, it's corrupt, then what the heart produces, the inclinations, the ideas, that eventually become manifest on the limbs, they're bad deeds. They're bad deeds. Everyone who, for example, ever stole, everyone who ever oppressed anyone, everyone who ever cheated anyone who ever lied, anyone who ever backbited, all these actions were at one point in time just ideas in their hearts. And eventually they manifested and became actions. Anyone who ever prayed, whoever fasted, whoever gave in charity, whoever was good to their spouse, raised their children righteously, was good to their neighbor, whoever ever built a masjid, all these kinds of people, all these people who worshiped Allah Ta'ala in these various ways, their acts of worship were all at one point in time just ideas in their heart. Just ideas in their heart. So the health of our heart is the importance of the health of our hearts and its effect on our life trajectory is something that is important to a degree that we cannot imagine. For that reason, such great emphasis was placed on making sure that, making sure that we have a sound heart. And so this heart that always is flipping between states. In Arabic, the word for heart is qalb. And qalb in Arabic means what? Means to flip, means to turn. And so this heart is always turning between states, between ideas, just coming and going all the time. Right now you're happy, a little bit later you're sad, a little bit later you're upset, a little bit later you want to do this, a little bit later you want to do that. Just flipping between states, constantly flipping states. And so to make sure that the states it's going through are all states that are pleasing to Allah Ta'ala and in line with the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is very important. And so just like how our physical body has illnesses that one should remedy and diagnose and treat, our hearts also have ailments or illnesses that we should diagnose and treat. And just like how the body has doctors that people go to for diagnoses and for treatments, the heart also has doctors that people go to who diagnose and who treat. And the head of all the doctors of the heart was the Prophet ﷺ. He was the one who the companions came to him, they became Muslim, and he through what Allah gave him with prophecy, treated all their hearts, removed from them these bad traits, and raised their ranks with Allah Ta'ala until they got to a point where, mashallah, they are at the forefront of this ummah. And so treating our heart is extremely important, making sure we identify things in it, vices in it, faults in it, and making sure we remove them, just like how we would remove any things that are plaguing our bodies in terms of illnesses or sicknesses or disease or conditions. And this is especially important because ultimately the goal of every single one of us is to get to a point where we adorn ourselves with the traits of the Prophet ﷺ. We adorn ourselves with the traits of the Prophet ﷺ. The whole point of tasawwuf, the whole point of rectifying your heart, the whole point of taking the path of spiritual training and becoming close to Allah Ta'ala is just that, to adorn yourself with traits. What kind of traits? The traits of the Prophet ﷺ. These prophetic traits that he came with, the trait of mercy for people, the trait of generosity, the trait of courage, the trait of bravery, the trait of standing up for what's right, the trait of helping those who are in need, all these traits the trait of justice, having these traits in your heart and adorning yourself with it so that eventually the actions related to them manifest on your limbs and you put them into practice and move close to Allah Ta'ala. Now, if you want to adorn your heart with these traits, there's a very important step that you must take first. If you have a vessel, you have like a cup, and you want to pour something clean in it. For example, you just brewed some coffee and you want to pour it in this cup. The cup is dirty. Would you pour the coffee in it? You got to wash the cup first, don't you? Otherwise, you're going to spoil your coffee. So likewise, we have our hearts, and we have this nourishing drink that the Prophet ﷺ came with, these traits that he came with that we all want to adorn ourselves with. We want to pour them in our hearts, put them in our hearts, and let it be a vessel for these traits. But there's things in this heart that if we don't take them out first, they'll just mix with what's pure and just sully it. And so the first step in rectifying our hearts is to identify and first to learn about these ailments of the heart or these negative traits, to identify them within ourselves and slowly remove them. And so once that happens, then you can take this prophetic nourishing drink, pour it in your heart, and let it enrich it and help it grow and reach its maximum potential and capacity as a true human being. So amongst the ailments of the heart, one of the most important ones for one to be mindful of and to recognize is the trait of arrogance. Arrogance, which is to see, which is when oneself sees themselves better than another of Allah's creation. Better than another of Allah's creation. And this arrogance was in fact one of the first sins ever performed by a created being. When Allah Ta'ala created our father, Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, our father Adam, He created him and He commanded the angels to bow to this created being, to Adam. Now the angels all bowed, and He commanded alongside the angels, Iblis, or the devil, who was not an angel, but what we call jinn. He was of a different genus or a different species. The angels are made out of light, and they're created exclusively to worship Allah Ta'ala and do His bidding. They cannot disobey Him. But the jinn, this other genus, species of beings, this other race, they are like human beings where they're given free will. Human beings are made out of clay, and these jinn are made out of fire. So this jinn, Iblis, he looked at Sayyidina Adam and he refused to bow. And when Allah Ta'ala commanded him and he refused to bow, he asked him, Iblis said to Allah Ta'ala, he said, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. He said, you created me from fire, and you created this thing from earth, from clay. And so he refused to bow because he saw himself as better than Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, our father Adam. Just because he thought that fire was better than earth. Fire was better than earth. So he refused to bow to him, and that's what led to him being expelled from Allah's good graces, and led to him eventually, becoming the devil, the one who tries to lead humanity astray. So he had this trait of arrogance in his heart. He thought he was better than Adam alayhi salam, than our father Adam. And so this trait of arrogance, of kibr as they call it in Arabic, is incredibly deadly. So long as someone believes they're better than any one of the believers, any one of the Muslims, then they have this trait in their heart. So long as someone believes that they're better than any one of the believers, even just one, they have a piece of arrogance or a bit of arrogance in their heart. So how can one treat this disease and remove from their hearts? Firstly, we have to always remind ourselves, who are we to be arrogant? Who are we to be arrogant? At one point in time, all of us were nothing. We were non-existent. And then Allah Ta'ala brought us into creation. A bit of fluid from our fathers, mixed with some fluid from our mothers, developed in a womb, and we were born completely helpless. Our parents raised us, and we grew, became children, then slowly teenagers, adults. And during the course of this development, how helpless were we? And how many times in our lives were we, in need of something? All the time. No, we're all the time in need of something. And even right now, if the heat stopped working, we couldn't sit in this room. We can't tolerate the cold. We're in need of this blessing Allah gave us of having this heat, this electricity, and this technology to serve us. And so humanity was made helpless. And in its phases, it's reminded of its need of Allah Ta'ala. And yet humanity looks at itself and becomes arrogant over one another, and thinking that it is better than so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so. How many times has someone been arrogant over someone else? For example, someone younger than them. And if they really thought about it, they'd see that, okay, you're being arrogant over this person who's younger than you, but this person who's younger than you hasn't sinned as much as you have sinned. Or they've been arrogant over someone who's older than them, and they haven't thought that, okay, you're being arrogant over this person older than you, but how much more has this older person worshipped Allah than you? Or even they might be arrogant over someone who's not Muslim. There's a story of one of the pious and scholars. He told one of his he had students. He had several students. So he told them. He told one of them. He said, "I want you to go and bring me someone that you are better than. Go out there, scour the village or the town, bring me someone that you are better than." So the teacher waited. He waited for some time, and eventually the student came back, the disciple came back with nobody. And he said, "Where's the person you're better than? You have failed the mission." And the student said, "I set off and I began to look around. And I saw the believers, and how could I say I'm better than any one of them? There are those who are older, they worship Allah more than me. There are those that are younger, they've sinned less than me. I don't know who's going to go to heaven and who's going to go to hell. They might all go to heaven, I'm going to go to hell. In which case they are better than me and I'm not." Then he said, "I turned my glance to the non-believers." Or often I turned my glance to the believers that are open sinners. The believers that are open sinners. And I saw them and I thought, these people who are open sinners, they might rectify themselves and turn to Allah Ta'ala, make tawbah, stop what they're doing, and die in a great state. In the meantime, I might change, start being an open sinner, transgressing Allah Ta'ala, and die in a bad state. So how can I say I'm better than them? So then he said, I turned my gaze toward the disbelievers, people who don't believe in Allah Ta'ala. And I saw them, and I thought, maybe I'm better than them. But then I realized Allah might give them guidance. They might become Muslim and die in a great state, whereas something might happen to me and I die as not a Muslim. So how can I say I'm better than them? So then I thought, well, if I'm not better than these people, maybe I'm better than this dog. He saw a dog on the streets, and maybe I'm better than this dog. I'll bring the dog to my teacher. But then I thought, well, this dog has never sinned in its life. In the day of resurrection, the day of judgment, when everyone's resurrected, this dog won't be taken into account for its sins. It won't enter hell. It'll just turn to dust. Whereas myself, I'll be taken into account for what I've done, and I might end up entering hell. In which case, this dog who turned into dust is better than me. So he came back with nobody. And so the teacher said, now you understand. So this is the state of humanity, where we are really better than nobody. None of us can truly say that they are better than anything in creation. All of humanity has and can supersede us in rank with Allah Ta'ala. And all the other things of humanity that are not human beings, or the other things of creation that are not human beings, we can't say we're better than it, because we might die in a state that's terrible and go to the fire. May Allah protect us all. And all these other created beings won't be taken into account and won't enter the fire. And so this trait of arrogance is something that is incredibly deadly. And it's enough for us to reflect upon these stories, to recognize its danger and removing it, and the importance of removing it in our hearts. And the key to removing it from our hearts is just that, to remind ourselves of our own helplessness and our own potential demise if we were to enter the fire, and how everything else in creation could potentially enter paradise or just turn to dust and not enter hell. So this is the first trait that is incredibly dangerous, that we should all take into account and be wary of. The second trait that a lot of the scholars may always mention that is dangerous is the trait of what's called jealousy, hasad. To believe that, to be jealous of someone else for a blessing Allah Ta'ala gave them, and to want that for yourself. To believe that Allah Ta'ala should not have given that person that trait or that blessing. For example, For example, someone sees someone with a lot of money, fancy car, nice house, well-paying job. Or they see someone, for example, with a great family life, or someone skilled, they're intelligent, they have degrees, they're skilled athletically, whatever it may be. They look at this person and they see them with these blessings and these gifts from Allah Ta'ala. And they say to themselves that that person doesn't deserve those gifts, that he deserves them. Jealousy, hasad. He says that this person doesn't deserve these gifts that Allah Ta'ala gave them, that he deserves it for himself. He doesn't want that person to have these gifts or these blessings. It's as if he's saying Allah Ta'ala was wrong in giving this person those gifts and those blessings, that they should be going to him instead. It's as if he's challenging God in his choices. He's challenging God, the creator of the world, and the sustainer of it, the Almighty, the All-Wise, in his choices. Challenging God. It's a really, really big sin. It's a really, really big sin. It's a very dangerous trait to have in your hearts. To be in a state where someone looks at something that Allah did in creation and he challenges it and basically says that, I know better than you. You should have given it to me and not to this person. And not to this person. And so this trait of jealousy is another trait that we have to be careful about. That we have to be careful about. It's something that can happen in our hearts, something that happens to many people, especially nowadays with social media. Everyone's, flaunting their life online. And everyone's always showing the good, the great things Allah has given them, whether it's, like some vacation that went on or this or that. It's online, all of it posted, and we flip through it. And so many people do this, they see other people's lives, and they just have this feeling of jealousy in their heart, wanting that for themselves and wanting that person never had that blessing, whatever it may be. So to recognize this disease is very important. And the treatment of it comes down to what? To recognize that Allah Ta'ala is wise in everything He does. He gave that person that blessing for a reason, and He didn't give it to you for a reason. Perhaps if He were to give it to you, it would be bad for you. So how many people look at other people, for example, with wealth, cars, homes, well-paying jobs, and they say in their hearts that they're more worthy of that blessing than the person who has it. They want it for themselves. Little do they know that if Allah gave them that blessing of wealth, they would have used it, for example, on things that are haram, that are not proper, that are not right. They would have used it, for example, in ways that are not pleasing to Allah Ta'ala. And so Allah Ta'ala saved them from that by not giving it to them to begin with. The last trait that we're going to discuss is the trait of what's called riya. Riya in English, they translate it as ostentation. It's basically to do something for other than Allah's sake. To do something to show off. And so this last trait is also incredibly dangerous because you do something for other than Allah Ta'ala. You do it for the sake of, fame, in order to be popular amongst people, in order for people to say, oh, look at so-and-so, he did this. Wow, he gave so much money to charity. Wow, he's at the masjid praying. Wow, mashallah, he fed us all. He brought food to the masjid for iftar, whatever it may be. You're doing something good for the sake of fame, for the sake of popularity, so people can, know you and recognize, and you're not doing it for Allah's sake. Well, if you do that, where is your reward? Someone does it for the sake of other people, and the Day of Judgment comes, and Allah Ta'ala is going through the books and the ledger, looking at everything you've done, and He's going to see that you prayed, but for so-and-so's sake, and He's going to say, go get your reward from that person. We didn't do it for Allah. Allah's not going to give us our reward. If we did it for Allah, He'd give us reward. But so long as someone did it for someone else, for another person, another created being, He's going to say, go get your reward from that person. You did it for them. Let them repay you for it. let them repay you for it. And on that day, what does any human being have to give another person? That day is Allah's. He has dominion on that day. He's the one who rewards and who punishes, and you have nowhere else to go. You have nowhere else to go. All those deeds that person performed for the sake of other people, all the prayer they might have prayed for the sake of other people so they could recognize him and see him as a pious person, all the fasting he did, all the money he gave, anything he did for other people, all that, the reward is gone. Because he did it for those other people, those created beings, they can't benefit him. Especially not on that day when Allah Ta'ala is the one who decides who gets eternal felicity in heaven and who gets punished in the fire. And so, recognizing that these actions that we perform, the only person who can reward us for them is Allah Ta'ala, helps us to fight this riyah, to fight this ostentation, to fight this showing off, so that we direct ourselves in our intentions and all of our actions to Allah Ta'ala. And these three traits are some of the most dangerous ones, as outlined by many of the scholars. For example, Imam Haddad, one of the great scholars of Yemen, one of these great scholars who is also a doctor of the heart, of the spiritual heart, he outlines this in his book, Good Manners. He says that these three sins of the heart or states of the heart are the most dangerous. To be arrogant, see yourself as better than anything else. To have hasad, to be jealous, and to believe that Allah shouldn't have given this blessing to that person, but it should have given it to you instead. And to be in a state of where you show off or have ostentation, where you do things for other than Allah Ta'ala, and expect to be rewarded for it. So these are some of the traits of the heart that one should be aware of and one should be mindful of. And there are many others, but these are the three most dangerous ones, the primary ones. And so we ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us in our hearts and to help us in purifying them. We ask Allah Ta'ala to help us in this blessed month of Ramadan to make us people who are purified, people whose hearts are sound, and that we take advantage of our fast and fast a true fast, and we take it as an opportunity to move closer to our Lord. We ask Allah Ta'ala to purify our hearts and the hearts of our family members and our community members, and that He makes our hearts all vessels that contain prophetic traits that eventually wash over us and our limbs, making us people who worship Allah Ta'ala in all of our states and all of our actions, all of our sayings. And He does this for all of us and our family members and all of our community members and everyone that we hold dear. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us people who fast the fast of the elites of this ummah, and that He accepts all of our fast and our worship in this blessed month, and that He makes us people who are able to spread the message of La ilaha illallah all over the community and all over the world, and that He guides all of our family members who are heedless to this religion, and all of our family members who are not Muslim to this religion, and that He makes all of us people who establish the Sunnah in our lives, and He grants us all eternal felicity in the next life, and makes our judgment before Him an easy one, where all of our bad deeds are turned into good deeds. We ask Him this for ourselves and our family members and our community members. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نستغفر الله نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. The same Surah Katab Ishraq we're about to pray right now, we get more reward for it today than we used to get last week. SubhanAllah. The blessings of Ramadan, our actions are multiplied, and how much reward we get. The same things we used to do last week, we get more reward for it now. For the mercy of Allah Ta'ala.